You think black mothers in the 1960s had money for fancy deli meat? Think again. These women turned poverty into nourishment, creating sandwiches that cost almost nothing but fed entire families. Here are 30 cheap sandwiches black mothers made in the 1960s. Sugar sandwich was survival disguised as sweetness, made when nothing else existed to give hungry children before school. Black mothers spread soft white bread with margarine, then sprinkled white sugar generously across the surface. The sugar partially dissolved into the fat, creating something between sandwich and candy that cost mere pennies but delivered quick energy. In urban neighborhoods from Harlem to Chicago's South Side, this appeared in lunch bags alongside promises that dinner would be better. Mothers understood that sweetness could make poverty feel less heavy, that sugar provided calories children needed to concentrate in overcrowded classrooms. Children never complained because they understood these sandwiches represented love stretched as far as it could go. What outsiders saw as desperation, black families recognized as ingenuity and fierce maternal protection. Sugar sandwiches proved that black mothers would find ways to feed their children no matter how little money existed. Ketchup sandwich emerged from the reality that condiments lasted longer than actual food, providing flavor when protein was absent. Black mothers spread ketchup thickly between bread slices, sometimes adding mayonnaise to create richness. The tomato-based ketchup provided vitamins and a taste children found comforting. In 1960s, black households, ketchup was affordable, costing less than 20 cents per bottle that stretched across dozens of meals. Mothers packed these for school lunches, knowing children would eat them because hunger made everything taste acceptable. The sandwich represented the gap between paychecks, days when welfare checks hadn't arrived yet. What made this remarkable was maternal determination to ensure no child left home with an empty stomach. Ketchup sandwiches taught that shame lived not in what you ate, but in refusing to make do with what you had. Mayonnaise sandwich was pure fat and carbohydrates, assembled when even flavorful condiments were depleted. Black mothers spread mayonnaise generously between bread, sometimes adding salt and pepper to create complexity. The mayonnaise provided calories and creamy texture that made dry bread palatable. In neighborhoods where grocery stores charged inflated prices, mayonnaise represented accessible sustenance that didn't require cooking. Mothers understood that fat provided sustained energy, that children needed calories to survive long school days. These sandwiches appeared during the hardest weeks when every other option had been exhausted. The sandwich spoke to a particular poverty that many outside black communities never witnessed, where having bread and mayonnaise felt like abundance. Children ate them without questions because questioning meant acknowledging a reality too painful to speak aloud. Mayonnaise sandwiches were edible dignity. Onion sandwich turned a vegetable that cost almost nothing into a meal, providing vitamins and sharp flavor. Black mothers sliced raw onions thin and layered them between bread with mayonnaise or mustard, creating something pungent and surprisingly satisfying. The onions provided vitamin C and minerals that children's bodies needed, especially during winter months when fresh produce was scarce. In the 1960s, onions were among the cheapest vegetables, often bought in bulk and stored for weeks. Mothers valued them because they could make bland sandwiches taste intentional, adding complexity that disguised the absence of protein. Children would return from school with onion breath that announced their economic status, but black mothers prioritized nutrition over social comfort. The sandwich represented resourcefulness born from necessity. Onion sandwiches taught that vegetables could sustain you, that feeding your family mattered more than conforming to middle-class meal ideas. Butter and syrup sandwich combined fat and sugar into something that tasted almost like dessert, but cost practically nothing. Black mothers spread butter or margarine thickly on bread, then drizzled cane syrup across the surface, creating a sticky sweet sandwich providing immediate energy. The combination delivered concentrated calories crucial for children who might not eat again until dinner. In working-class black neighborhoods, this sandwich could be assembled quickly by older children caring for younger siblings. The syrup was shelf-stable and cheap, purchased in large containers that lasted months. Children loved these sandwiches because they tasted indulgent, providing psychological comfort during times when comfort was scarce. Mothers understood that sweetness could temporarily distract from hardship. The sandwich represented making poverty feel less relentless, turning deprivation into something resembling choice. Butter and syrup sandwiches were small acts of love. Fried egg and hot sauce sandwich delivered complete protein and explosive flavor when meat was financially impossible. Black mothers fried eggs in whatever fat was available, often bacon grease, then placed the egg between bread with hot sauce. The egg provided essential amino acids and sustained energy, making it superior to sugar-based sandwiches. In the 1960s, eggs were among the most affordable protein sources, with a dozen costing less than 50 cents. Mothers valued eggs because they cooked quickly on hot plates and satisfied hunger more completely than carbohydrate-only meals. Hot sauce was a pantry staple, purchased in large bottles that lasted months and added personality to bland food. The combination of runny yolk and vinegary hot sauce created something that tasted intentional and culturally specific. Fried egg and hot sauce sandwiches represented the intersection of necessity and culture, turning limitation into something distinctly flavorful. Potted meat sandwich used mysterious canned meat paste that cost less than proper lunch meat but provided protein. Black mothers spread the processed meat from small, flat cans across bread with mayonnaise and mustard to mask its industrial flavor. The meat was predominantly fat and organ tissues ground fine, but it contained enough protein to matter for children living in poverty. In corner stores, potted meat cost as little as 15 cents per can, making it accessible when bologna or ham were impossible luxuries. Mothers knew the meat wasn't high quality, that it contained parts most people refused to eat, but nutrition mattered more than preferences. The sandwich filled stomachs and provided calories that helped children focus in school. What made potted meat remarkable was how it concentrated protein into an affordable form requiring no refrigeration, ideal for families in inadequate housing. Children often disliked the texture but ate the sandwiches because they understood their mother's circumstances. Vienna sausage sandwich featured tiny salty sausages from cans that cost pennies and provided convenient protein. Black mothers arranged the small sausages on bread, sometimes slicing them lengthwise to create more coverage, adding mustard or ketchup. The sausages were heavily processed but delivered fat and protein that children's bodies needed. In the 1960s, Vienna sausages represented accessible luxury in Black households, costing more than potted meat but less than fresh meat. Mothers appreciated that the sausages could be eaten straight from the can, requiring no preparation beyond opening. Children often enjoyed Vienna sausages because they resembled actual hot dogs, providing a sense of eating something recognizable. The sandwich appeared in school lunch bags, at kitchen tables for quick dinners, and as after-school snacks when hunger struck. Vienna sausage sandwiches proved that Black mothers understood the value of convenient, affordable protein requiring minimal effort. Sardine and crackers sandwich combined canned fish with crushed crackers to create texture and substance. Black mothers mashed sardines with their oils, mixed in crushed saltines, and spread the mixture on bread, creating something resembling fish salad but costing a fraction of tuna. The sardines provided omega-3 fatty acids, calcium from soft bones, and complete protein, making them nutritionally superior to many affordable options. In corner stores, sardines cost between 15 and 25 cents per can, with each can making multiple sandwiches when stretched with crackers. Mothers valued sardines because they were shelf-stable and could be prepared without cooking. The strong, fishy smell meant many children initially resisted these sandwiches, but hunger taught them to accept the unusual flavor. Sardine sandwiches appeared most frequently at the end of the month when money ran lowest, representing the bottom of the barrel that was still nourishing. Peanut butter and banana sandwich represented comparative luxury in Black households during the 1960s, combining affordable protein with fresh fruit. Black mothers spread peanut butter thickly on bread and added sliced bananas, creating something genuinely delicious and nutritionally complete. The combination provided protein, potassium, natural sugars, and sustained energy. Peanut butter was economical, providing more protein per dollar than almost any other food source. Bananas were among the cheapest fruits, often sold in bulk or purchased nearly overripe at reduced prices. This sandwich appeared on special occasions or good weeks when paychecks stretched far enough to include treats. Children loved peanut butter and banana sandwiches because they tasted good without requiring acquired tastes. The sandwich represented hope that circumstances might improve, that poverty didn't have to mean constant deprivation, that sometimes even poor families could eat food tasting like joy. Pickle and cheese sandwich combined two cheap staples that created surprising complexity. Black mothers layered thin slices of American cheese with dill pickle slices between bread, sometimes adding mayonnaise. The sharp tanginess of pickles cut through the bland creaminess of cheap cheese, creating a genuinely enjoyable flavor. In the 1960s, American cheese slices cost less than 40 cents and lasted through many meals, while pickles were inexpensive. Both ingredients were shelf-stable and readily available in corner stores throughout Black neighborhoods. The sandwich provided calcium from cheese and vitamins from fermented vegetables. Children often requested pickle and cheese sandwiches by name, making them one of the few poverty foods that didn't require maternal coercion. The sandwich represented the possibility that cheap food didn't have to taste like deprivation, that flavor combinations could create pleasure even within tight economic constraints. Cold grits sandwich repurposed leftover breakfast grits into portable lunch food that stretched yesterday's meal into today's sustenance. Black mothers would cook grits thick enough to solidify when cooled, then slice the firm grits and place them between bread slices. Sometimes they fried the grits slices first to add texture and warmth. The grits provided carbohydrates and a subtle corn flavor that paired acceptably with bread. In Southern Black households where grits were breakfast staple, this sandwich represented making sure nothing edible was wasted. Cold grits could be eaten plain or with a little butter or salt. Children initially found the concept strange, but learned to accept cold grits sandwiches as part of the household economy. The sandwich proved that poverty required creativity not just in what you cooked, but in how you repurposed leftovers across multiple meals, turning breakfast into lunch without spending additional money. Leftover green sandwich transformed yesterday's dinner vegetables into today's lunch. Black mothers would chop cold collard greens or turnip greens and pile them onto bread, sometimes adding Potlikker to moisten everything. The greens provided vitamins and minerals that were essential nutrients often missing from other cheap options. In Black Southern cooking traditions, leftovers were common because greens were typically cooked in large quantities. The sandwich had a distinctive flavor that was earthy, slightly bitter, and satisfying. Mothers valued this sandwich because it delivered genuine nutrition without additional cooking or expense. Children who initially resisted cold greens between bread gradually accepted it as they understood the economic reality. The sandwich represented the truth that vegetables could substitute for protein when protein was unavailable, that survival sometimes meant eating foods in unconventional ways. Fatback sandwich featured thick slabs of pork fat that were fried until crispy and sandwiched between bread. Black mothers would slice fatback thin and fry it slowly until the fat rendered out and the meat became crispy, then place the hot slices on bread. The rendered fat soaked into the bread, creating surprising richness. In the 1960s, fatback was among the cheapest cuts of pork available, often costing less than 20 cents per pound. Mothers understood that fat provided essential calories and energy. The sandwich was intensely salty and rich, requiring acquired tastes that Black children learned to develop. Fatback represented the parts of animals that wealthier people rejected, transformed through necessity into food that sustained life. The sandwich taught that survival sometimes meant embracing foods others considered undesirable, that economic status determined which parts of animals ended up on your plate. Neckbone meat sandwich salvaged tiny bits of meat from pork or beef neck bones that had been boiled for soup. Black mothers would carefully pick meat from the bones after making broth, mixing the shredded meat with mayonnaise, then spreading it on bread. The meat was tender from hours of simmering but sparse in quantity, stretched as far as possible across multiple sandwiches. In Black households where bone-based soups were common, the leftover meat represented free protein. Mothers valued this practice because it demonstrated respect for food, ensuring that every edible part served a purpose. The sandwich delivered genuine protein despite coming from scraps many people would discard. Children learned early that meat didn't have to come in neat slices, that protein could be salvaged through patient work. Neck bone meat sandwiches taught that poverty required seeing value where others saw waste, that survival meant embracing labor-intensive food preparation. Tomato and salt sandwich was summer simplicity that turned garden vegetables into refreshing meals. Black mothers would slice fresh tomatoes thick and layer them on bread with generous salt and sometimes pepper. The tomatoes provided vitamins and hydration during hot months. Many Black families maintained small gardens or bought tomatoes from local growers during peak season when prices dropped. Mothers valued tomatoes because they required no cooking, no expensive ingredients. The sandwich represented seasonal abundance in communities where abundance was rare. Children loved tomato sandwiches because they tasted fresh and bright, different from the heavy processed foods that dominated poverty diets. The sandwich proved that sometimes the simplest combinations delivered the most pleasure, that fresh vegetables could be luxury. Tomato and salt sandwiches were proof that poverty didn't eliminate joy, just made it more dependent on seasonal timing. Pepper and egg sandwich combined affordable protein with cheap vegetables to create a nutritious meal. Black mothers would scramble eggs with diced bell peppers or hot peppers, then pile the mixture onto bread while still warm. The eggs provided complete protein while peppers added vitamins and taste complexity. In Black neighborhoods, bell peppers could be purchased individually for pennies, while hot peppers often grew in small gardens. Mothers appreciated this combination because it made limited eggs stretch further. The sandwich could be eaten hot or cold hours later, making it practical for school lunches. Children enjoyed the pepper and egg sandwich because it had actual flavor and substance. The sandwich represented resourcefulness that created variety within poverty, proving that adding a single inexpensive ingredient could transform a basic meal into something worth anticipating. Pepper and egg sandwiches taught that small additions created large differences. Canned salmon and onion sandwich elevated inexpensive canned fish with sharp raw onion to create something resembling proper fish salad. Black mothers would mash canned salmon with diced raw onion and mayonnaise, spreading the mixture on bread. The salmon cost more than potted meat but less than fresh fish. In the 1960s, a small can of salmon cost around 30 cents, containing enough fish to make several sandwiches when stretched with onions. Mothers valued canned salmon because it was shelf-stable and delivered nutrition that growing children needed. The onions masked the slightly fishy canned taste while adding sharp flavor. Children initially resisted the strong flavors, but learned to appreciate salmon sandwiches as they understood they represented comparative luxury. The sandwich proved that occasionally spending slightly more on quality ingredients was investment in children's health, that good nutrition didn't always have to come from the cheapest possible sources. Pressed ham sandwich featured mystery meatloaf that was affordable and acceptably flavored. Black mothers would buy pressed ham from corner store delis where it was sliced fresh, costing less than proper ham but more than potted meat. The pressed ham contained actual meat mixed with fillers, creating something that resembled real deli meat enough to satisfy children who craved normalcy. Pressed ham represented aspiration toward middle-class sandwiches that children saw their wealthier classmates eating. Mothers chose pressed ham for special occasions, adding mustard and maybe lettuce to create sandwiches that looked respectable. Children valued pressed ham sandwiches because they felt normal, less obviously marking them as poor. The sandwich occupied a psychological space where poverty met dignity, where families could occasionally afford something approaching mainstream food culture. Pressed ham sandwiches taught that sometimes emotional comfort mattered as much as nutrition. Liver pudding sandwich used regional meat product made from pork liver and cornmeal, sliced and served cold or fried between bread. Black mothers, particularly in the South, would buy liver pudding from local butchers where it was sold in loaves that cost pennies per pound. The liver pudding had a distinctive grainy texture from the cornmeal and a strong liver flavor that divided people. Mothers valued liver pudding because it provided iron and protein from organ meat that most people rejected. The sandwich was typically dressed with mustard and maybe pickles to cut through the richness. Children raised eating liver pudding accepted it as normal, while those encountering it for the first time often struggled with the intense taste. The sandwich represented regional food traditions that sustained poor communities. Liver pudding sandwiches taught that food preferences were learned through necessity, that poverty expanded your definition of edible and acceptable beyond middle-class boundaries. Sweet potato sandwich turned leftover baked sweet potatoes into filling lunch food that provided vitamins and natural sweetness. Black mothers would mash cold sweet potatoes and spread them between bread slices, sometimes adding butter. The sweet potatoes were naturally sweet and creamy, requiring no additional sugar. Sweet potatoes were among the cheapest vegetables available, especially in southern states. Mothers valued sweet potatoes because they were nutritious and stored well through winter. The sandwich provided vitamin A, fiber, and complex carbohydrates that sustained energy throughout school days. Children often enjoyed sweet potato sandwiches because they tasted sweet without being candy. The sandwich represented making use of yesterday's dinner in creative ways. Sweet potato sandwiches taught that vegetables could be sweet, that poverty didn't eliminate pleasure from eating, that resourcefulness created variety within limitation. Bean paste sandwich transformed leftover beans into spreadable filling that turned carbohydrates into protein-rich meals. Black mothers would mash leftover pinto beans, navy beans, or black beans with a little cooking liquid, creating a paste that could be spread on bread. The bean paste was thick, earthy, and surprisingly satisfying. In Black households where beans were cooked in large batches, finding new ways to serve leftovers was essential. The paste could be seasoned with salt, pepper, or hot sauce. Children initially resisted the concept but learned to accept it. The sandwich provided complete protein when combined with bread, creating the amino acids necessary for growth. Bean paste sandwiches represented the ultimate in resourcefulness, turning something many people would discard into nourishing meals. The sandwich taught that texture and presentation could be adjusted to make foods more acceptable, that creativity extended beyond initial cooking into reuse. Cornbread and milk sandwich wasn't quite a sandwich in traditional sense, but served the same purpose of filling hungry stomachs. Black mothers would crumble cornbread into bowls and pour cold milk over it, creating something between soup and cereal. The cornbread absorbed the milk, softening into a porridge-like consistency that was sweet and filling. In southern Black households where cornbread was baked regularly and milk was affordable, this combination represented quick sustenance. Children could prepare cornbread and milk themselves. The mixture provided carbohydrates from cornbread and protein from milk. Some families called this depression cereal or poor man's breakfast, acknowledging its origins in economic hardship. The cornbread and milk sandwich taught that meals didn't require elaborate preparation or expensive ingredients, that comfort could come from familiar flavors combined in unexpected ways, that poverty forced creativity that sometimes created genuinely enjoyable food. Pickle loaf sandwich featured mysterious processed meat containing visible pickle pieces that divided people into passionate supporters and absolute haters. Black mothers would buy pickle loaf from deli counters, costing slightly more than bologna but less than proper deli meat. The pickle loaf was pink with green pickle chunks suspended throughout. The combination of processed meat and pickles created a flavor that was salty, tangy, and oddly addictive. Pickle loaf represented an attempt at sophisticated lunch meat for families aspiring toward middle-class food culture. Mothers chose pickle loaf for special occasions, knowing children would be excited to have something different. The sandwich was typically served with mustard on white bread. Children who grew up eating pickle loaf often remembered it fondly as comfort food. Pickle loaf sandwiches taught that food preferences were deeply tied to childhood memories, that poverty shaped taste in ways that lasted lifetimes. Deviled ham and pickle sandwich combined spreadable canned meat with tangy pickles to create something that tasted intentionally complex. Black mothers would mix deviled ham from small cans with chopped pickles and mayonnaise, spreading the mixture thickly on bread. The deviled ham was spicy and smoky, while pickles added crunch and acid. Deviled ham cost around 20 cents per small can, containing enough meat to make several sandwiches when stretched. Mothers valued this combination because it felt like proper sandwich filling, something that could be served without embarrassment. The sandwich provided protein and flavor that satisfied hunger. Children often requested deviled ham sandwiches because they tasted grown-up compared to sugar or mayonnaise sandwiches. The sandwich represented aspiration within poverty, proving that even limited resources could create meals that felt special. Deviled ham and pickle sandwiches taught that combining ingredients created value greater than individual parts. Egg and pickle sandwich combined affordable protein with tangy preserved vegetables to create a nutritious and flavorful meal. Black mothers would hard-boil eggs, chop them roughly, and mix them with chopped pickles and mayonnaise. The pickles added crunch and acid that transformed plain eggs. Hard-boiled eggs were practical because they could be cooked in batches and kept without refrigeration briefly. Mothers valued this sandwich because eggs were cheap, pickles were inexpensive, and the combination provided complete protein. The sandwich could be prepared quickly or made ahead. Children found egg and pickle sandwiches acceptable because the pickles made them taste less boring. The sandwich represented small improvements within poverty, showing that minor additions could significantly increase satisfaction. Egg and pickle sandwiches taught that creativity within limitation created variety, that poverty didn't have to mean monotonous eating, that small choices mattered. Cheese and jelly sandwich combined savory and sweet in unexpected ways that either delighted or horrified, depending on taste. Black mothers would layer slices of American cheese with grape jelly between bread, creating something that tasted almost like grilled cheese meets dessert. The combination provided both protein and quick energy. In households where both were available, this sandwich represented creative combination that cost almost nothing. Some families grilled the sandwich to melt the cheese, while others ate it cold. Children often loved cheese and jelly sandwiches because they felt like treats. Mothers appreciated that the sandwich provided calcium and calories. The combination proved that poverty sometimes created unexpected flavor pairings. Cheese and jelly sandwiches taught that rules about what belonged together were flexible, that survival sometimes meant ignoring conventional wisdom, that creativity could turn basic ingredients into memorable meals. Fried bologna and mustard sandwich elevated cheap lunch meat through cooking technique that created texture and flavor beyond what cold bologna offered. Black mothers would fry bologna slices until the edges curled and the meat developed crispy spots, then place hot meat on bread with bright yellow mustard. The frying process rendered out fat and created complexity. Bologna was among the most affordable lunch meats available, costing less than 40 cents per pound. Mothers valued fried bologna because cooking transformed it from obviously cheap food into something children enjoyed. The mustard added sharpness that cut through the richness. Children often requested fried bologna specifically. The sandwich represented understanding that preparation method mattered as much as ingredients, that poverty didn't eliminate cooking skills. Fried bologna and mustard sandwiches taught that taking time to cook improved food significantly, that resourcefulness included technique. Lard and sugar sandwich represented absolute bottom of the barrel, made when literally nothing else existed except cooking fat and sweetener. Black mothers would spread lard thickly on bread, then sprinkle sugar over it, creating pure calories without pretense of nutrition. The lard provided fat that bodies needed, while sugar delivered immediate fuel. In the hardest times, lard and sugar sandwiches kept children from starving. The sandwich tasted heavy, sweet, and undeniably poor. Children ate lard and sugar sandwiches without complaint because they understood the severity of circumstances. Mothers made these sandwiches with shame and determination, refusing to let children go completely hungry. The sandwich represented the absolute limit of resourcefulness, where creativity ended and pure survival began. Lard and sugar sandwiches taught that poverty sometimes stripped away dignity, that survival required eating things you would never choose, that love persisted. Leftover chicken skin sandwich salvaged crispy skin from Sunday fried chicken, turning scraps into coveted treats that children fought over. Black mothers would carefully save chicken skin after meals, storing it to be eaten cold or reheated between bread. The skin was salty, fatty, and intensely flavorful. In Black households where fried chicken was special occasion food, the leftover skin represented extended enjoyment of luxury. Children valued chicken skin sandwiches because they tasted like the best part of chicken. The sandwich provided fat and protein in concentrated form. Mothers understood that chicken skin would otherwise be wasted, that creating sandwiches from scraps demonstrated respect for food. The sandwich proved that what wealthy people discarded, poor families transformed into treasured meals. Leftover chicken skin sandwiches taught that every part of expensive food had value, that creativity extended to using elements most people ignored, that poverty required seeing potential. Molasses stack cake was the layered reunion dessert that carried Appalachian history into Black family gatherings where traditions blended and traveled through generations. Thin cake layers were baked one at a time in well-greased pans, each one soft, warm, and smelling of ginger, cinnamon, and deep molasses, sweetness. The filling was made from cooked molasses or spiced fruit spread into glossy layers that softened the cake as it rested overnight, turning the entire stack into a tender, richly flavored dessert that cut cleanly into tall slices. The cake was humble yet impressive, built from repetition, patience, and steady hands, moving in practiced rhythm across the kitchen. At reunions, it stood out because its flavor was warm and old-fashioned, and its height made people gather around with curiosity and appreciation. Every bite carried slow winter baking, homegrown molasses, and the memory of cooks who stretched ingredients into something celebratory. Molasses stack cake tasted like time effort and love stacked carefully into something sweet enough to share across an entire family. Lard cakes were the sweetheart of hard times, the kind of dessert that brought back joy when butter was a dream. Made from flour, sugar, and a scoop of lard saved from breakfast, they baked up soft and fragrant. The smell filled the house, buttery without butter, rich without cream. People called them poverty cakes, but they tasted like victory. The lard kept them moist for days, and a touch of spice or molasses made them taste like something from a bakery. Children licked the crumbs from their fingers, not caring that it came from the same jar used for frying eggs. Every family had their own version, some with raisins, some with cinnamon, each one proud and personal. Lard cakes were a reminder that sweetness was not about luxury, it was about invention. They were proof that love could rise from scarcity, baked golden in worn pans and shared without shame. In kitchens filled with laughter and thrift, lard cakes turned necessity into delight. Crowder pea stew was a variant of black-eyed peas that found its way into countless kitchens during hard years. Crowder peas, smaller and creamier than black-eyed peas, were simmered down with onions, peppers, and bits of smoked meat if any were available. The stew was thick, filling, and high in protein, making it essential for families who needed food that stretched far. Served with cornbread or rice, Crowder pea stew could feed many mouths at little cost. It was one of those dishes that reflected the ingenuity of turning simple legumes into full meals that carried flavor and strength. The stew also tied into a long history of peas as a staple in African and Southern food traditions. Families leaned on it not only because it was affordable, but because it was familiar and comforting. Crowder pea stew was more than food, it was a lifeline and a cultural anchor in times of scarcity. Sweet potato pie with brown sugar meringue crowned holiday tables with a beauty that matched its flavor. Smooth, mashed sweet potatoes blended with warm spices created a filling as rich as any custard, poured into a flaky handmade crust. The crowning touch was a cloud of meringue whipped with brown sugar until caramel-scented peaks formed and browned lightly in the oven. Families saved the first slice for honored guests or elders, a sign of respect and affection. The pie carried the sweetness of the southern soil and the skill of generations who knew how to stretch simple ingredients into celebration. Children licked the mixing bowls clean while parents watched the meringue rise, a shared moment of anticipation before the feast. Over time, commercial pies and instant mixes dulled the tradition, but those who remember the warm aroma of brown sugar meringue know that this dessert is more than food. It is a memory of family love, patient hands, and the quiet pride of homemade beauty. Pine needle tea offered a bright and restorative drink when fresh produce was scarce during cold months. Enslaved foragers collected the youngest green needles from longleaf and loblolly pines, rinsed them carefully, and steeped them in hot water until the brew released a light citrus aroma. Rich in vitamin C, this tea helped ward off scurvy and brought a welcome freshness to winter diets heavy with salt-preserved foods. The practice echoed both indigenous traditions and West African herbal knowledge, merging two continents' wisdom into a single sustaining cup. Families continued to brew pine needle tea well after emancipation, and it remains popular among modern herbalists for its gentle flavor and reputed immune-boosting qualities. Its evergreen scent and warm golden color remind us that even in the most barren season, the forest offered nourishment. Pine needle tea illustrates how observing the land and respecting its cycles allowed people to find both medicine and comfort, turning what others overlooked into a sustaining daily ritual that strengthened body and spirit alike. In the 1960s, fatback and cabbage was a reminder that flavor did not come from abundance, but from knowing how to cook with care. It was a dish that taught respect for every part of the animal and every leaf from the garden. Pork, fatback, and cabbage turned scraps into sustenance. Vegetable pot pie with biscuit crust was one of the cleverest ways to turn leftovers into a comforting meal. My grandmother gathered whatever vegetables were left from the week, beans, carrots, peas, or turnips, and simmered them in a simple gravy. She poured the mixture into a dish and covered it with biscuit dough instead of pie crust, which baked into a golden, fluffy topping. The result was hearty, filling, and deeply satisfying, stretching scraps into something that felt like a Sunday supper. Each slice carried both thrift and comfort, a reminder that nothing from the kitchen was wasted. The biscuit crust gave the dish substance, making it a true dinner instead of just a side. In the 1960s, vegetable pot pie with biscuit crust was common across homes that relied on ingenuity, turning odds and ends into meals that filled plates and warmed hearts. It was survival, wrapped in comfort, food that told the story of resourceful families making the most of what they had. Mustard greens with smoked turkey necks carried the flavor of endurance from one generation to the next. During the Great Depression and later years when ham hocks became expensive or scarce, cooks turned to the neck bones of smoked turkey for the same rich depth. The greens simmered slowly in seasoned broth until tender, soaking up the smoky essence of the meat and the spice of crushed red pepper. Families gathered around the pot to breathe in the savory aroma while cornbread baked in the oven. This dish offered nourishment and warmth, proof that ingenuity could turn modest ingredients into a feast. Children learned to wash and tear the greens while elders seasoned by taste alone, passing down a craft more than a recipe. Today, pre-washed greens and quick cooking methods have dulled the ritual, but the memory of long simmering pots and the steady comfort of smoked turkey necks remains a powerful reminder of resilience and shared meals. Bay leaf infusion offered warmth and gentle comfort, using one of the few aromatic plants that grew wild near plantation quarters. Fresh or dried bay leaves were gathered from native bay trees and steeped in hot water to create a soothing tea with a light floral scent and mild medicinal qualities. This infusion was believed to aid digestion and ease colds, and it provided a calming moment during hard days. The knowledge of bay's healing properties came from both African herbal traditions and local indigenous practices, merging into a shared understanding of the land's quiet gifts. Even after emancipation, African American communities continued to brew bay tea for health and hospitality, and its subtle fragrance remains a hallmark of Southern kitchens where bay leaves still flavor soups and stews. Bay leaf infusion stands as a gentle reminder that survival was not only about calories but also about care, showing how enslaved people drew strength and solace from the natural world around them. Sweet potato pie was the deeply rooted reunion dessert tied to gardens, home kitchens, and family wisdom passed down through generations. Grandmothers roasted sweet potatoes until their skins loosened and the flesh turned soft and sweet, then mashed them with milk sugar eggs and warm spices until the filling glowed a deep orange. Poured into a homemade crust and baked slowly, the pie set into a silky custard that carried the taste of memory in every bite. Its aroma filled kitchens with the scent of nutmeg, cinnamon, and roasted sweetness, reminding everyone of holidays, harvests, and the hands that taught them how to cook. At reunions, sweet potato pie stood proudly beside every cake, cobbler, and pudding because it represented history, home, and identity. One slice held the softness of family stories and the strength of those who baked it long before modern recipes existed. Burdock root stew speaks to the deep botanical knowledge carried by African cooks who could read the land for nourishment even when fields were bare. Burdock, a hardy root with a flavor similar to earthy artichoke, grew wild along fence rows and shaded ditches where other crops refused to thrive. Gatherers dug the long taproots with simple hand tools, scrubbed them clean, and sliced them thin before simmering them for hours with any garden greens or herbs that might be on hand. The slow cooking softened the root into a tender base for a broth that was both filling and rich in minerals. This practice echoed African and indigenous traditions of using wild roots as a staple during lean times. After emancipation, burdock continued to appear in rural foraging guides and folk remedies, admired for its subtle sweetness and sustaining qualities. Today, herbalists still value burdock for its nutrients, reminding us that what once served as a quiet survival food remains a symbol of resourcefulness and a connection to the untamed landscape of the American South. Okra fritters, also known as okra cakes, offered crisp golden edges and a tender interior that celebrated the summer garden. Fresh okra pods were chopped fine, mixed with cornmeal, onions, and a dash of pepper, then spooned into hot oil until each patty puffed and browned. Sold at fish fries, church picnics, and traveling fairs, these fritters were easy to eat by hand and full of flavor that tied African heritage to southern soil. The okra gave a subtle sweetness and a soft binding that kept the patties moist while the cornmeal crust provided satisfying crunch. Children waited impatiently beside bubbling skillets, hoping for the first fritter to cool enough to taste. Vendors wrapped them in newspaper cones so families could stroll through evening air scented with music and spice. Modern snack foods have replaced these handcrafted treats, but those who remember the sound of oil popping and the taste of garden-fresh okra know the fritters carried more than flavor. They held the joy of gathering and the pride of turning humble crops into a festival of taste. Ham bone soup with vegetables was one of those meals where one piece of meat flavored an entire pot. A single ham bone, stripped of most of its meat, simmered for hours with onions, carrots, and potatoes until the broth turned rich and smoky. My grandmother would add beans or greens if she had them, letting the flavors meld into something far more substantial than the ingredients suggested. Families gathered around steaming bowls, dipping bread into the broth and savoring the flavor the bone had left behind. It was frugal cooking at its finest, taking scraps and stretching them into nourishment. The soup fed many mouths, warmed cold nights, and made do with what was available. In the 1960s, when meat was costly, a ham bone could be the centerpiece of dinner, proving that thrift and patience could coax flavor out of nearly anything. Ham bone soup with vegetables carried both practicality and comfort in every ladleful. Red velvet cake with cream cheese frosting was the showstopper that signaled a celebration long before anyone sliced into the deep red layers shimmering under thick white frosting. The batter mixed into a smooth, vibrant red color that felt dramatic and festive as it poured into pans waiting to bake into soft, tender layers that held moisture like a secret. Once cooled, each layer was stacked carefully with generous spreads of cream cheese frosting, smooth, rich, and tangy enough to balance the sweetness of the cake. At reunions, this cake never blended into the background because its color stood bold against every other dessert, drawing eyes and calling people forward even before the meal was finished. Elders sliced it with pride, remembering holidays, anniversaries, and Sundays when red velvet marked something important. The flavor was warm, gentle, and comforting with a subtle cocoa note that made every bite feel familiar, even for those tasting it. For the first time, red velvet cake was a symbol of family joy, tradition, and the belief that reunions deserved a dessert that felt truly special. Watermelon rind stew reflects the creativity and endurance of people forced to survive on the edges of the plantation food system. The sweet red fruit was usually reserved for those in the owner's household, But the pale green rind, often thrown away, became a valuable ingredient for the enslaved cooks who transformed scraps into nourishment. Strips of rind were simmered slowly with onions, garden herbs, and whatever seasoning could be gathered or traded, creating a mellow broth rich in minerals and gentle sweetness. This practice traveled forward in time, inspiring the pickled watermelon rind that remains a hallmark of Southern home kitchens today. The dish is more than a recipe. It is a record of resilience, showing how African culinary knowledge turned waste into sustenance and flavor. In modern celebrations of African American foodways, watermelon rind pickles and stews continue to honor those who preserved health and dignity through skilled cooking even when denied basic freedom. Which cheap sandwich does your family remember? Drop it in the comments, hit like if these stories matter to you, and subscribe for more forgotten food history that deserves to be remembered and honored.